Okay, so the activity I chose to do for this assignment was to research more in depth the immigration process and what it takes to immigrate to the United States. Um, when I approached this activity and this assignment, I really wanted to look at the immigration process through the lens of an immigrant or of someone who wanted to apply for citizenship in the United States, rather than just trying to get an idea of immigration as a whole. I wanted to know what it would be like, what my chances would be if I were in their shoes to make it into the United States. Um, I didn't really have any expectations before this activity. I I hadn't really given much thought to immigration at all. Meaning being comfortably born into the United States and having all of the rights and privileges. Never thought about how hard and how long of a process it would be to get to this point through immigration. I thought that maybe that when people wanted to immigrate, they would have to go through some sort of lottery system, essentially just drawing names out of a hat to find out who makes it into the country. But research showed me a lot more behind that. Essentially, there are two major opportunities to immigrate to the United States, either getting a family-based visa or a work-based visa. And so if you have an immediate family member who lives in the U.S., for example, if your spouse lives in the U.S., it's pretty easy to get in to immigrate. But if you have other immediate family members like siblings, parents, then there still is the opportunity, but it becomes a lot harder. There's different priorities given to different family members, and the lower down on that priority list you are, the more and more you have to wait, and the more and more impossible it really is to get that visa. As far as the work-based one, this is what really surprised me. So just like the family visa, they have um, different levels of priority. And so if you have an advanced graduate PhD type degree, or you have exceptional skills, if you're like an incredible talent in your field, you have the highest priority of getting a visa. Then below that, if you have any kind of graduate degree, 10 years of work experience with like high trained skills, you have a chance. If you have a bachelor's degree or multiple years of experience in a skilled labor position, like with training, it like this seems like, yeah, that should really open the door for you, but that's like the lowest priority there is. You are fighting with so many other people just for a shot. And if you are an unskilled laborer, if you didn't get a college degree of any kind, you're fighting with essentially hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people for a position that doesn't really exist. There are about 10,000 positions available per year for this type of labor, the unskilled laborer, and um, you just have to wait in line. There's no way to bump yourself up on that list. In order to even get on the list in the first place, you have to have a job offer. So if you are, I don't know, living in some remote village in South America, and you have a dream of immigrating to the United States, how are you going to get in contact with an employer? How are you going to um, get that job offer? How are you going to find the paperwork? How are you going to get the information? If you don't have access to the internet, there's no chance. And even if you do manage to get the paperwork and manage to get the job offer, it could be 10 years before you hear back from them, before that spot opens up. So this experience did kind of shake my core beliefs. Being born in the U.S., I always really thought and believed that anything is possible for everyone, and that if you have enough determination, you can get what you want. It's not necessarily that simple for people who are trying to immigrate to the U.S. without being highly educated or trained. It's just not a reality that they can latch onto. They don't have the resources to connect with potential employers. There's pretty much no shop for them. I would never condone illegal immigration, and I'm not even really talking about immigration reform, but just in doing this research, I felt for a minute the sort of the hopelessness and the fear that a family might feel if they really want to move to the U.S. in the legal way, but then they see everything that's up against them, they see the chances, and those decisions are really tough to make. One really interesting thing that I learned was that there's some pretty serious cutoff numbers, like 10,000 is the cutoff for the unskilled laborers, and beyond that there's a 7% cap per country, which means that people trying to get in from Mexico or India or China, where there's a huge amount of applicants, only 7% of that total 10,000 can come from any one given country. So if you're coming from Mexico or China or India, you aren't really fighting for 10,000 spots. You're fighting for closer to 700 spots per year. And so in those countries, the wait line just gets pushed back so far. Also, just finding the information in the first place and muddling through the paperwork, it is not an easy process. If your first language isn't English, life is going to be tough. There are certain things that have Spanish translations, but if you were trying to immigrate from Pakistan, for example, I think that just finding the resources would be near impossible to do without the right connections. As far as how this all will impact my relationships with future students, I think just having a general understanding of the difficulties, the challenges, the setbacks, and the obstacles that were overcome for these students to get to where they are right now. Moving to the U.S. is not an easy process, and trying to find your way in the American culture is going to be just as difficult. And so I think that having faith in the students that they can achieve, and realizing the things that could be standing in their way and helping them navigate this new, scary, and difficult world, I think that's the best thing you can do as a teacher. Just take time to get to know them, to understand them, find out who they are, where they come from. I think that is the best way to make a difference in the students' lives.